3 weeks. 21 days of uninterrupted operations. Of building an empire while maintaining facades. Of being two men at the same time always, without rest. Tenil the Wolf stood before the operations board that now covered an entire wall of the base. Red lines connecting targets. Green markings indicating completed operations. Blue for in progress. And yellow were potential problems. And there were many yellows lately. "Report," he said, the Wolf's voice carrying a weariness he tried to hide but that Asher had probably already detected. Current situation. Asher was seated at the central table, surrounded by 3 different notebooks, glasses sliding slightly down his nose as he alternated between notes. He didn't look up immediately, a sign of how focused he was. Operation Horvath. Complete and consolidated. He reported, turning a page. Distributors were persuaded by the blade and skull. 23 of the original 27 now work for us. The other 4 disappeared, presumably fled the city. Dream dust stock was redistributed, 60% destroyed, 40% kept as evidence against Kasimir when necessary. Addicts? The Wolf asked. The seer managed a partnership with the Temple of Asclepius. Asher continued. 72 addicts identified, 43 accepted treatment, 29 refused or disappeared. Considerable success given the circumstances. The Wolf nodded. Good. At least this operation had a redemptive component. Illegal routes? Protection established on all 3 main routes. Asher turned to a different notebook. We hired 18 veteran mercenaries, the Blade and Skull command teams. No serious incidents so far. 2 small bandit attacks, both repelled without losses on our side. Reputation growing. 4 additional merchants requested protection this week. And the Blackport gang the seer mentioned? Successful negotiation. Asher smiled slightly. The hunter made initial contact. We offered partnership. They control minor smuggling. We control main routes. Territory division? They accepted. No conflict. Surprisingly civilized, the Wolf commented. They're pragmatic, Asher replied. And they saw what happened to Crane. They prefer partnership to war. The Wolf began walking along the wall, studying each marking. Fenrir had grown exponentially in the last 3 weeks. From 7 members to a network of almost 50 hired mercenaries, paid informants, coerced distributors, negotiated allies. But rapid growth always came with risks. Finances? He asked. Healthy, Asher replied. Horvath's funds plus route protection revenues cover all operational costs with a comfortable margin. Additionally, partnership with Lord Crane has also begun generating legitimate profit. Ah yes, Crane. The bridge between 2 worlds. How's it working? Impeccably, Asher said. First copper shipment arrived last week. Excellent quality. Fair prices. And Crane delivered the first package of information about Kasimir's operations. The hunter is verifying, but preliminarily it seems legitimate. And the other 7 nobles? Crane made contact with Victor Thane. Asher consulted his notes. Thane expressed strong interest. Wants to meet with you as Lord Vorten, obviously in the next 2 weeks. If it goes well, he's ready to end his partnership with Kasimir and transfer fleets to your operation. One at a time, as planned. The Wolf murmured. Good, but then his gaze landed on the yellow markings. Potential problems. And there was one particularly large and bright in the center. The hound and our hunter? He asked, voice becoming more tense. Any progress? Asher paused, and the hesitation said everything. The hunter is tracking, but the hound is evasive. He set his glasses aside, rubbing tired eyes. 3 more street informants disappeared this week, all in the docks area. All worked in locations where Fenrir operates occasionally. And before disappearing, each was seen talking to a tall, thin, hooded figure. Cold ran down the Wolf's spine. He's mapping our territory. Seems so, Asher confirmed. Hasn't attacked any members yet. Just collecting information, meticulously, patiently, like a hunter waiting for the perfect moment. How long until he has enough? Impossible to know, Asher admitted. But based on the pattern of disappearances, I'd say 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then he'll make his move. 2 to 3 weeks, and the ball was in 1 week. Terrible timing? Ambush plan? The Wolf asked. The seer and the hunter are finalizing it, Asher replied. We created a false informant. Plausible story about having seen the Wolf removing his mask at a specific location. We plant the rumor where the hound can hear it. We wait for him to investigate. And when he comes, he gestured. All of us will be waiting. Risky, the wolf said. All our options are risky now, Asher replied honestly. But remaining reactive is worse. We need to take the initiative. The door opened, and Estella entered, still wearing light patrol armor, blue hair tied in a combat braid. She went straight to Asher, kissing him briefly, a casual gesture of an established couple, before turning to the wolf. Problem, she said without preamble. Small, but annoying. One of the mercenaries we hired for the routes is asking questions. About you, about who the wolf really is. Immediate tension. Name? The wolf asked. Derek Vane, Estella replied. Veteran. Good fighter. But too curious. Raya heard him asking another mercenary if anyone has ever seen the wolf without a mask. If there are rumors about his real identity, fire him, the wolf said immediately. Today, pay what's owed and cut him. Already done, Estella confirmed. But Wolf, he's going to talk. Mercenaries always talk. And he worked for us for 3 weeks. Saw operations. Know some members. Not critical details, but enough to be problematic. Then we ensure he doesn't talk, the wolf said, voice turning cold. Estella exchanged a look with Asher. Both knew what that meant. You want me to... Estella began. No, the wolf interrupted. Not yet. First, the hunter monitors him. If he just goes back to normal life, drinking in taverns and complaining about his former employer, we let him. But if he seeks someone out, especially if he seeks Kasimir's agents or worse, the hound, then yes. Neutralization. Understood, Estella nodded. I'll inform the hunter. She left, and the wolf returned to looking at the board. So many pieces in motion, so many potential threats. And he at the center of it all, trying to control chaos that was growing exponentially. You need to rest, Asher said quietly. I don't have time. You'll collapse if you don't, Asher insisted. 3 weeks without a real break. Operating as Lord Vorten by day, the wolf at night, sleeping 3-4 hours a night maximum. Your body has limits. I know my limits, the wolf replied, sharper than intended. No, you used to know them, Asher corrected. Now you're ignoring them, and that's dangerous. Not just for you, but for all of us. An exhausted leader makes mistakes. And mistakes kill. Silence. Because Asher was right and they both knew it. After the ball, the wolf finally said. 1 week, I show up, perform the social noble, and then I'll take a few days off. Let you all run operations for a while. Promise? Asher asked. Promise, the wolf confirmed. But even as he said it, both knew it was a gentle lie. Because when you were building a shadow empire while maintaining a noble facade, rest was never really possible. Just degrees of exhaustion. Tenil stood before the full-length mirror in his room, watching the tailor make final adjustments to the formal attire he would wear to the ball. Dark blue fabric house Vorten's color subtly, embroidered with silver threads. Gray vest, impeccable white shirt, tie perfectly knotted. He looked every inch the respectable noble. Lord Tenil Vorten, heir to an ancient house, rebuilder of family fortune, desirable matrimonial prospect. Perfect mask hiding the wolf beneath. Perfect, your lordship, the tailor said, stepping back to admire his work. If I may say so, you'll be the best dressed at the ball. Thank you, Master Cornelius. Tenil replied politely. Ironic to share a name with his mentor in the shadows, but this Cornelius was just a skilled tailor, nothing more. Lady Morel entered as the tailor finished, carrying a small velvet box. Ah, it's ready, she said with approval. You look very handsome, my son. Your father would be proud. Tenil forced a smile, but the usual guilt tightened. Father would be proud? Of the son who'd built a criminal empire? Who'd stained the family honor with blood and conspiracies? Probably not. Thank you, mother. She waited for the tailor to leave, then opened the box, revealing a brooch. A silver wolf with sapphire eyes. House Vorten's crest. Tenil looked at it, feeling the irony burn. Wolf, of course. As if the universe were mocking him. It belonged to your father, Lady Morel said, carefully taking the brooch. He wore it on special occasions. And now, she pinned it to Tenil's lapel. It's yours. Mother, I don't know if I should. You should, she said firmly. You're the head of the house now. Carrying the family's symbols isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. She adjusted the brooch, then stepped back. And besides, it looks good. Distinguished. Tenil looked in the mirror. The silver wolf gleamed against the dark fabric. Public symbol of something he'd become privately. Duality constantly echoing. "You're nervous," Lady Morel observed, not as a question. "A little," he admitted. "You don't need to be," she said gently. "It's just a ball, conversation, dancing, nothing you can't handle." If only she knew. He'd faced mortal combat, blackmailed nobles, built a criminal organization. But a social ball? That made him genuinely anxious. Because in combat, you knew the rules. Kill or be killed. In conspiracy, you controlled the narrative. But at a social event? Improvised performances, genuine conversations, constant risk of a slip, of revealing too much, of someone seeing through the masks. Anyone specific you're nervous about seeing? Lady Morel asked, tone slightly teasing. "No," Tenno replied too quickly. She smiled. "Then why did you blush?" "I didn't, Tenno, I'm your mother." "I know when you're lying." She sat on the edge of the bed. "So who is she? One of the 60 who sent proposals? Or someone you met outside formal context?" An image of Raya flashed in his mind-amber eyes, crossed swords on her back, contempt burning when she looked at Lord Vorten. But he couldn't say that. Couldn't explain that he was obsessed with a woman who hated him because she didn't know who he really was. "There's no one," he insisted. "Yet," Lady Morel corrected. "But there will be. And when there is, I hope you'll tell me. Because I'd like to meet the woman who finally captured my impenetrable son's attention." She left before he could respond, leaving Tenel alone with his reflection and the weight of the silver brooch. Silver wolf, public and private symbol. Constant reminder of impossible duality. 5 days. 5 days until performing on the social stage. Surrounded by nobles who couldn't know the truth. Conversing, dancing, feigning normalcy. Could he do it? Or would finally one of the masks crack? Only time would tell. Tenel rarely allowed himself moments of genuine normalcy. But occasionally, when the weight of both lives became suffocating, he escaped. Just for an hour. To a cafe where no one knew Lord Vorten. Where he could sit, drink tea, read the newspaper without performance. Today was one of those days. The cafe was small, hidden on a non-noble corner of the merchant district. Clientele were traders, scribes, workers. No one who cared about court politics or recognized noble faces. Tenno was at a corner table, wearing simple but quality clothes, hat pulled low, newspaper open. Article about concerning growth of organized crime. Ironic considering he was half the reason for this concern. "Is this table occupied?" Female voice. Familiar. Impossible. Tenno raised his eyes slowly and his heart stopped. Raya Feroz stood there, tray with tea in her hands, looking at the table where he sat, the only empty one in the crowded cafe. She wore casual mercenary clothes, not combat armor, but simple brown tunic and dark pants. Hair tied in a ponytail. No visible weapons, but probably carrying at least 2 hidden knives. And she hadn't recognized him. Yet, because in this context, wearing simple clothes, without the Vorten crest, without obvious noble posture, he was just another man reading the newspaper. No," Tenno replied, forcing his voice casual. "Feel free." She sat across from him, placing tea on the table, sighing with relief at finally having found a spot. "Thank you," she said, not really looking at him, focused on pouring sugar into her tea. "Place is absurdly crowded today." "Payday," Tenno commented, trying to sound normal despite internal panic. "Workers spending newly earned coins. Makes sense." Raya drank, then finally looked at him properly. And Tenno saw the moment. That fraction of a second where she studied him, brain processing, trying to decide if she knew him. Then she frowned slightly. "You look familiar? Have we met?" "Shit, think fast." "I don't think so," Tenno said, forcing a small smile. "But I work at the docks occasionally." "Maybe you saw me there?" Lied, but plausible, and created distance from noble identity. "Maybe." She accepted, but still studied him. "You don't look like the type to work at the docks, honestly." Hands too clean. She gestured to his hands resting on the newspaper. Tenno quickly hid them under the table. "Scribe," he improvised. "I work with cargo manifests. Paper, not boxes." Raya nodded, apparently satisfied. She returned to focus on her tea. "Makes sense." Silence fell. Uncomfortable for Tenno, casual for her. Just 2 strangers sharing a table in a crowded cafe. But for him, it was exquisite torture. sitting meters from the woman who dominated his thoughts, woman who respected the Wolf, despised Lord Vorten, and had no idea that both were sitting in front of her now. "You look tired," Raya said suddenly. Tenil blinked. "Excuse me?" "Dark circles." She pointed to her own eyes. "You have them. Bad ones. Not sleeping enough." "Work," Tenil said, not completely a lie. "Many manifests to review. Tight deadlines." She drank tea. "I understand. I've also been busy, lots of work lately." "What kind of work?" Tenil asked, genuinely curious about what she said in her civilian identity. "Mercenary," Raya replied directly. "Caravan guard, trade route protection. That sort of thing." "Dangerous," Tenil observed. "Sometimes?" She smiled slightly. First time he'd seen a genuine expression on her outside of Fenrir's context. "But it pays well, and honestly, I prefer honest danger to fake politics." "Fake politics?" Tenil repeated. "You know," she gestured vaguely, "nobles in their games. Pretending civility while stabbing each other in the back. At least in combat, you know where the enemy is." She snorted. "I've worked as a guard at some noble events. The types I see there," she shook her head, false smiles. "Empty courtesies, all performance. Makes me sick." Each word was a small knife, because she was describing exactly what he'd have to do in 3 days. "Not all nobles are like that," Tenil said, not knowing why he was defending. Raya looked at him with skepticism. "You know many nobles? As a dock scribe?" "Some," Tenil improvised. "I review their manifests, and some seem decent. Working hard for their houses, trying to do the right things. Maybe," Raya conceded, "but most? Parasites. Living off others' work while pretending superiority." Her eyes became distant. "Especially that one, what's his name? Vorten. Young lord. The one who lost his father and brother and suddenly wants to perform being responsible." Tenil froze. She was talking about him. Directly. Without knowing. You know him?" He forced himself to ask. "Not personally, thank the gods," Raya said with obvious disdain. "But I've seen him. A few times. Guard work. And he's..." She searched for the word typical. "Walks like the world owes him something. Looks at people like me like we're invisible." She spat lightly on the floor beside the table. "I spat in front of him once, months ago, just to see his reaction. And you know what he did? Nothing. Just looked shocked that a commoner would have the audacity." She laughed bitterly. Pathetic, each word burned. Because she wasn't wrong. He had been pathetic, spoiled, blind. Everything she said. But he'd changed. He wasn't that boy anymore, but she didn't know. Couldn't know. "People change," Tenil said quietly. "Maybe," Raya replied, but didn't sound convinced. "But rarely, and never nobles. They just get better at hiding what they are." Silence fell again. Heavy. Suffocating. "I should go," Tenil said, standing. He couldn't anymore. Couldn't sit there hearing her describe with brutal precision exactly why she could never respect him. "Work to finish." "Sure," Raya nodded casually. "Thanks for sharing the table. No problem." Tenil placed coins on the table to pay for his tea. Then, unable to resist, he stopped. "For what it's worth, not everyone hides what they are. Some really try to be better, even if they never get credit." Raya looked at him with confusion. "That was specific." "Just an observation," Tenil said, putting on his hat. "Good luck with mercenary work. And be careful. I heard there's a dangerous hunter on the streets lately." He left before she could respond, heart hammering, hands trembling slightly. Chance encounter. 10-minute conversation. And it had confirmed everything he feared. She hated him. Genuinely. Completely. And not because he was a monster, but because he'd been a privileged coward. And the part that hurt most? She was right. He had been all of that. In the shadows, walking back to the noble district, Tenil allowed himself a moment of brutal honesty. He was in love with a woman who could never reciprocate. Because she respected the Wolf symbol mask idealization, and despised Tenil real man with real flaws, real past. And revealing the truth would destroy both. Impossible situation. Story with no happy ending. And in 3 days, he'd have to go to a ball and pretend to consider other women. Perform availability. Smile. Dance. While the only face he could see was hers. Always hers. The carriage waited at the mansion's circular entrance. An elegant vehicle painted in dark blue with the Vorten crest on the doors, pulled by 4 black horses. Servants loaded a trunk with formal clothes, gifts for the hosts, and everything else that noble etiquette demanded for a week-long stay at a social event. An entire week. 7 days performing the social noble. 7 days away from Fenrir, from operations, from direct control. Tenil was in the office with Asher, making the final transfer of responsibilities. His desk was covered with documents, some about House Vorten's legitimate business, others about Fenrir's far less legitimate affairs. So it's confirmed, Tenil said, reviewing the final list. You command operations while I'm gone. Any important decision, you have the authority to make it. Estella is your second. Cornelius supervises. If anything critical happens, he pointed to a small device that Asher had developed, a metal tube with powder that burned in a specific color. You send a signal. I see it, make up an excuse and return immediately. Understood, Asher said, taking meticulous notes. He was dressed formally as a secretary, but there was tension in his shoulders. He clearly didn't like the idea of Tenil being out of reach for so long. But you know the probability of being able to return quickly from a ball without raising suspicion is low, I know, Tenil admitted. But I can't simply disappear for a week without a contingency plan. He pulled out a thick folder. These are reports on high society over the past few months. Scandals, alliances, rivalries. Everything Malric managed to compile about the nobles who will be at the ball. Asher took the folder, quickly leafing through it. Comprehensive, useful. You'll study it on the journey? Every page, Tenil confirmed. I need to know who I'm dealing with, who might be a potential ally, who's loyal to Kasimir. Who's just a dangerous idiot, he paused. And more importantly, who might suspect something if I slip up. You won't slip up, Asher said confidently. You've been doing this for 2 years. Performance is second nature to you now. I hope so, Tenil murmured, but he didn't sound convinced. And as for Fenrir, Asher continued, returning to operational focus, I let everyone know that the Wolf is, what, exactly, traveling? On a secret mission? Say I'm coordinating a delicate operation that requires my complete attention for a week. Tenil instructed that I won't be able to be physically present, but that Hati has full authority to act in my name. And make it clear, any disobedience to you is disobedience to me. Consequences will be severe. Preventive intimidation, Asher approved. It works. And what about the Hound? Tenil asked, the constant worry. Malric continues tracking, Asher replied. The ambush plan is almost ready. We might execute it while you're away. If it works, you'll return to a neutralized threat. And if it doesn't work, then we deal with it, Asher said simply. Like we always do. But Tenil, he leaned forward. You need to stop trying to control everything from everywhere simultaneously. Trust the pack. We can manage for a week. Tenil looked at his right-hand man, seeing genuine certainty. Asher was right. He had to trust. All right, he said finally. Fenrir is yours for a week. Don't destroy it. I won't make any promises, Asher responded with that strange smile. But I'll try to minimize damage. It was a joke. Probably. Tenil chose to believe it was. They went downstairs together, Asher carrying the folder of documents that Tenil would study. At the main entrance, Lady Morel waited wearing an elegant travel outfit even though she wasn't going anywhere, just keeping up appearances for the servants. All ready? She asked when Tenil approached. Yes, mother, he replied, accepting the folder from Asher and handing it to a servant to place in the carriage. Lady Morel looked at him with that maternal expression, part pride, part concern, part something he couldn't fully name. A week alone, she said, not as a complaint, but as an observation. First time since the tragedy that you'll be away for so long. Will you be all right? Tenil asked, genuinely concerned. She had been so fragile after the deaths. She'd improved greatly, but still, I'll be perfectly fine, Lady Morel assured, touching his face gently. I have servants, I have friends I'll visit. And I have, she gestured to Asher, your excellent secretary who promised to check if I need anything. Anything at all. Lady Vorten, Asher confirmed with a small bow. Absolutely anything. You see? Lady Morel smiled at Tenil. I'm more than taken care of. Now go. And try. She paused, choosing her words. Try to really enjoy it. I know you see this as duty, but it can be more, if you allow it. Tenil kissed her forehead. a gesture of affection he didn't make frequently enough. "I'll try," he promised, knowing it was a kind lie. Then he turned to the figure waiting near the carriage, Captain Marcus, commander of his personal guard. A man in his 40s, a veteran, loyal to House Vorten for decades. "Captain," Tenil said, approaching, "I'll be away for a week. During that time, I want security tripled at the mansion." "Tripled, sir?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's significant. Is there a specific threat?" "Prevention," Tenil replied. "Times are uncertain. Our house has grown in influence, which means we've also grown in potential enemies. I don't want to leave my mother vulnerable." "Understood," Marcus nodded. "Extra guards at the gates. Patrols around the perimeter. And rigorous verification of any visitor." "Perfect." Tenil squeezed the captain's shoulder. "I trust you, Marcus. Keep her safe." "With my life, sir," Marcus responded with absolute conviction. Finally, there were no more excuses to delay. Tenil climbed into the carriage, settling into the upholstered seat, the folder of documents beside him. Bag with clothes already loaded. Everything ready. Lady Morel waved from the entrance. Asher remained formal, but with a small wave as well. Marcus shouted an order, and the carriage began to move, horses trotting smoothly along the road leading out of the noble district. And as the mansion disappeared behind him, Tenil felt something strange, not relief at escaping responsibilities, but growing anxiety. As if he were leaving something vital unprotected. Control. He was accustomed to control. And now for a week, he would have to trust that others would keep everything functioning. Just a week. 7 days. He could manage it, probably. The journey would take approximately 4 hours, enough time for Tenil to thoroughly review the documents Malric had compiled. He opened the folder, finding the hunter's typical organization, categorized by noble house, with subcategories by relevance, political connections, and threat level. The first page was a general summary. Thornwell Ball participant analysis. Total invited guests. 47 young unmarried nobles, age range. 14 to 23 years exception. Lord Tenil Vorten. 25 years. Tenil paused at that line. Exception. He'll be older than everyone by at least 2 years. In a society where marriages were typically arranged between 16 and 20 years, being unmarried at 25 was abnormal, suspicious even. He continued reading. Note: it is common in nobility for marriages to be arranged young to ensure alliances and heirs. Lord Vorten, as an unexpected survivor who became heir at 23, has a plausible excuse for the delay. But 2 years after the tragedy, society will expect movement. Malric had written in the margin, in tight handwriting, "Prepare for provocations. There will be those who see you as an easy target, too old, illegitimate heir, newly rebuilt house. Use this. Let them underestimate you." Strategic wisdom. Tenil made a mental note. He turned to the next section. Political factions. Malric had identified 3 main groups among participants. Kasimir's allies, 12 young people. Sons and daughters of nobles who owed loyalty or business to Kasimir, most dangerous. Probably instructed to observe. Tenil list included Lord Julian Thorn, 19, arrogant, son of Kasimir's banker. Lady Helena Dre, 18, intelligent, father controls merchant fleets for Kasimir. Lord Davos Merrick, 20, brute, military family loyal, opportunistic neutrals, 23 young people, the majority. Smaller houses looking for the best possible alliances, not loyal to anyone specifically, follow power possible targets for conversion if Tenil demonstrates strength. Malcontents, potential allies. 9 young people. Children of nobles who had reasons to dislike Kasimir, included some that Crane had mentioned. Most promising for genuine networking. And then on the last page of the summary, a highlighted special note. Rothas family, Lady Seraphine Rothases, 21 years old. Only daughter of Lord Armin Rothases. Old house from the countryside, rarely seen in the capital. Focused on agriculture and grain production. Enormous landholdings, but low political influence by deliberate choice to avoid court. Reason for presence, unknown. The Rothases family hasn't attended social events for at least a decade. Lady Seraphine's presence is anomalous. Warning: possible strategic move. Investigate motives. Tenil frowned. A countryside family that avoided politics suddenly appearing at a social ball? There was a story there, curious. He continued reading through the individual profiles. Each young noble catalogued with impressive detail. Lord Julian Thorn, banker's son, arrogant by birth. known for provoking rivals until they explode. Strategy: make victim appear temperamental and irrational. Weakness: pride, cannot tolerate being ignored. Lady Cassandra Vale, 17 years old. Beautiful and knows it. Uses appearance as a weapon. Flirts to extract information. Works for father who is Kasimir's advisor. Weakness: excessive confidence and charm. Lord Edmund Core, son, 19 years old. Son of one of the nobles Crane mentioned, the one with the silver mines. Possibly uncomfortable with father's association with Kasimir. Opportunity for probing. Lady Helena Dre, 18, intelligent, dangerous for being underestimated. Delicate appearance hides sharp mind. Father controls fleets. Has already shown interest in real politics, not just marriage. Treat with genuine respect or make a permanent enemy. And so it continued, 47 profiles. 47 social masks he would have to navigate. Tenil leaned back in his seat, looking out the carriage window. Green fields passed by. Peaceful landscape that contrasted brutally with the information warfare he was absorbing. 25 years old, unmarried, not the original heir, vulnerable to social attacks, and surrounded by young nobles, some Kasimir's allies, some opportunists, some potentially useful. It was a different battlefield from the streets where Fenrir operated. There were no swords here, no direct blood, but it was war equally. War of words, glances, implications. And defeat could be as devastating as physical death. Destroyed reputation meant lost alliances. Lost alliances meant isolation. Isolation meant vulnerability. And vulnerability meant that Kasimir could attack House Vorten again, this time socially, with no one to defend them. No, that wouldn't happen. Tenil had performed the noble for 2 years. He could do it for a week. He returned to the documents, memorizing names, faces. Malric had included sketches, family connections, identified weaknesses. Every detail was a potential weapon, every piece of information a shield. When the carriage finally began to slow down, hours later, Tenil had absorbed everything. 47 nobles, their stories, their loyalties, their weak points. Knowledge was power, and he would enter that ball armed to the teeth, even if the weapons were invisible. The Thornwell property was impressive, even by noble standards, 3-story mansion in Whitestone. Elaborate gardens extending for acres. Central fountain with a statue of the house's founder. Old wealth displayed without shame. Multiple carriages were already parked, other guests arriving throughout the day. Uniformed servants moved efficiently, carrying luggage, guiding young nobles to designated rooms. When Tenil's carriage stopped at the circular entrance, a servant immediately approached to open the door. Tenil descended, adjusting his coat, looking around with the trained eyes of the wolf, even while maintaining Lord Vorten's posture. Always assess, always observe, always survive. Lord Vorten, a booming and overly enthusiastic voice. What an honor! What absolute joy! A man in his early 50s descended the main entrance stairs with surprising speed for his considerable size. Lord Gregory Thornwell, patriarch of the house, host of the ball. He wore clothes too expensive for a casual afternoon, embroidered in gold, screaming wealth in a way that made even Tenil, accustomed to opulence, feel slightly uncomfortable. Lord Thornwell, Tenil greeted, extending his hand. Gregory completely ignored the hand, pulling Tenil into a tight hug that was inappropriate for a first formal meeting. Tenil stiffened, deeply uncomfortable, but forced himself not to push away. "Forgive me." Gregory finally released him, laughing loudly. "But it's so wonderful to have you here. Lord Tenil Vorten, heir to such an old and noble house. Your presence deeply honors our humble home." Humble was on the word Tenil would use to describe a property that was probably worth more than 3 smaller noble houses combined. "Thank you for the invitation," Tenil said, recovering polite composure. "Your property is impressive." "Ah, very kind indeed." Gregory gestured grandly. "My wife, Lady Thornwell, is regrettably supervising final arrangements for tomorrow's opening. But she insisted I express her warmest welcome. Please convey my thanks." "Certainly." "Certainly?" Gregory began walking toward the entrance, practically pulling Tenil. "Now let me explain the schedule. Very important." "You've arrived at precisely the perfect moment." They entered the main hall, vast space with vaulted ceiling. Crystal chandeliers, double marble staircase. Excessive. Everything was excessive. "The ball proper begins tomorrow afternoon." Gregory continued, gesturing dramatically. At precisely 3 o'clock, all guests will be present. There will be formal dinner at 7, and then dancing until midnight. Entertainment. Splendor. Sounds elaborate, Tenil commented, trying to sound appreciative. Oh, but that's only the first day. Gregory laughed. The ball continues all week. Second night. Strategic games tournament. Third, hunting on our lands. Fourth, artistic performances. And so it continues until the grand finale on the 7th day. An entire week. 7 days of this, Tenil felt part of his soul die. How generous, he forced out. Nothing is too generous to unite young nobles from such distinguished houses, Gregory declared. My son, Philip, he gestured vaguely, is so excited. 20 years old, you know, perfect age. And surrounded by so many charming young ladies and distinguished young lords like yourself. Tenil noticed that Gregory had categorized him as distinguished instead of young. Subtle reminder that he was older. Not necessarily an insult, but an observation. So, Tenil said, trying to redirect. Have the other guests already arrived? Most yes, Gregory confirmed. Some will still arrive tonight or early tomorrow. But approximately 35 of the 47 are already lodged. You'll have plenty of company, many opportunities for, he winked exaggeratedly, mutual acquaintance, if you understand. Tenil understood perfectly, and hated it. Marvelous, he lied. Now, your room, Gregory spun, calling a servant. Thomas, take Lord Vorten to the Blue Suite. Second best in the entire property. Reserved especially? Second best? Tenil asked before he could stop himself. Ah, yes. Gregory didn't seem to notice the irony. First is for Lord Julian Thorne. Son of our dearest banker, but second is equally magnificent. You'll see. Lord Julian Thorne, son of Kasimir's banker. Of course, Kasimir's most important ally among the young people present received the best room. Clear message about social hierarchy. Politics. Always politics. Unsure it will be perfect, Tenil said diplomatically. Excellent. Excellent. Gregory followed him as Thomas began guiding Tenil upstairs. And Lord Vorten, one last thing. Yes? Please don't hesitate to request absolutely anything. Anything at all. We're here to ensure your greatest comfort and, he lowered his voice conspiratorially, greatest success in finding appropriate company, if you understand my insinuation. Tenil understood and wanted to die. Very kind, he managed to say. Finally, Thomas guided him upward, away from Gregory, still waving and shouting welcomes. The second-floor corridor was quiet, luxurious, with mahogany doors generously spaced. Here, sir. Thomas stopped before a door with a discreet plaque, Blue Suite. Your luggage has already been brought. If you need anything, just ring the bell. A servant will come immediately. Thank you, Tenil said, entering. The suite was absurd. Main bedroom with canopy bed, sitting room with fireplace, private bathroom with marble bathtub, and even a small office. Windows overlooked the gardens below, where he could see some young nobles already socializing. His trunks were carefully arranged. And on the bed, there was an envelope with the Thornwell seal. Tenil opened it. Dear Lord Vorten, welcome. Complete schedule of the week's events is attached. Please dress formally for informal welcome dinner tonight at 8. Tomorrow, the real ball begins. With warmest regards, Lady Margot Thornwell. Attached was a detailed 7-day schedule. Tenil scanned quickly. Day 1, opening ball, formal dinner. Dancing day 2, chess and strategic games tournament. Day 3, hunting on Thornwell lands. Day 4, artistic performances, music, poetry, etc. Day 5, elaborate picnic, outdoor games. Day 6, conversation soiree, open library. Day 7, closing ball, engagement announcements, hopefully. 7 days of uninterrupted social performance. Surrounded by young nobles, some Kasimir's allies, some opportunists, some potentially useful, without Fenrir, without Asher, without direct control. Just Tenil Vorten, vulnerable, exposed, performing for an audience that would judge every word, every gesture, every micro-expression. He sat on the edge of the absurdly comfortable bed, looking at the silver wolf brooch still pinned to his coat. Symbol of his father. Symbol of the wolf. Symbol of everything he couldn't be here. 1 week. Just 1 week. He'd survived worse. Probably. But as sounds of young laughter and socialization floated through the open window, Tenil couldn't shake the feeling that he was entering a trap. Beautiful, golden, but still a trap. And wolves in traps rarely escaped unscathed.
And so, another chapter of our saga comes to an end. But the tapestry of time still holds many plots to be revealed. To not miss the unfolding of upcoming events and continue this journey with us, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Leave your like so more listeners discover our tales and share this story with those who also yearn for new legends. What was your favorite moment from this narrative? Leave your comment below and get ready because the next chapter will soon echo here. See you next time, dear listener.